All right, Wyoming Congresswoman Harriet Hageman took out Liz Cheney with Trump's endorsement, makes her one of our favorites. Congresswoman, it's good to have you on tonight. Your reaction to the Mike Johnson speakership, it seems like he's pretty popular. It seems like he's right up your alley.
Well, he is. As a constitutional attorney, he and I actually are very well aligned on so many of the issues that are important to the American public, but are also critical to getting our country back on track. I've had the good fortune of working with Mike on 3 separate committees during the 118th Congress. He and I are both on the Judiciary Committee. We're on the Select Committee on the Weaponization of the Federal Government, and he chairs the Constitutional and Limited Government Subcommittee, of which I'm a member as well. So I have been able to work very closely with him over the last 10 months. I have an enormous amount of respect for him, and I agree we've got to get our spending under control. One of the other things that I'm so pleased about with Mike is that Mike really does understand that there is the utility and the purpose of the separation of powers between the executive branch and the legislative branch. One of the biggest agenda items that I have had, not just while I've been in Congress, but for the last 20-some years as a practicing constitutional and water and natural resource attorney, has been to return to the separation of powers where it is the legislative branch that legislates. The reason that that is so important is because we have abdicated our responsibility in that regard for decades. But as a result, there's no accountability for the spending that goes on in this country. We've essentially turned legislating over to elected bureaucrats.
Let me ask you something. I mean, where you're going is exactly what I wanted to talk about. But that's the conundrum is, how do you win elections? If you want to actually turn off the spigot and stop spending so much money, I think you find a much smaller donor base in that, and that makes it harder to win elections. That's why Washington can't stop spending all this money, because it's just a spend-a-thon.
You know, I'm not nearly as concerned about that as perhaps Karl Rove is, because he looks at money as being the currency of the legislative process, and I don't. The way that I look at curbing the spending is for our legislative branch to actually take responsibility for legislating. And by taking responsibility, they are then held accountable to the American public for the bad decisions that are made. As soon as I'm done with this hearing, I'm walking back over to the floor, and I'm going to be arguing 3 amendments to a bill that is before us right now. And the very purpose of my amendments is to defund agency action, but from agencies who should not be undertaking the activities that they are. That's what we need to do as legislators. So that doesn't have anything at all to do with the donor base. That has to do with us going in and saying, you know what, agency X, Y, and Z, whether it's the EPA, Department of Transportation, Commerce, whatever it is, you do not have the legal authority to dictate what kind of vehicles we get to drive. You do not have the authority to dictate what kind of stoves we use. That is how we get back on the right track here and stop spending so much money in Washington.
I like all that. Congresswoman, thank you so much for taking the time. We appreciate it.